Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something every single one of us shares, yet we spend our whole lives desperately trying to ignore. We are, quite frankly, terrified of the one inevitable event waiting for us all. But here's a thought. What if realizing your time is running out is actually the ultimate secret to unlocking a genuinely meaningful life? Let's get into it. So there's this massive irony in how we live today. On the surface, what we actually do is spend billions, literally billions of dollars on anti-aging creams. We dread our birthdays, and we live in a state of deep, profound denial. But deep down, what we secretly believe is that the end won't actually come for us. No way. We've somehow convinced ourselves that death is just this terrible glitch in the system, right? Like it's the ultimate evil that we just have to avoid, reverse, or completely shove into the darkest corners of our minds. Which brings us to part 1, the modern death problem. And that rolls right into part 2, the illusion of infinite time. Look, modern medicine and safe living conditions, they've done absolute wonders for humanity. But they've also trapped us in this really unique psychological box. They've made it almost too easy to just turn a blind eye to our own mortality. And you know what? This intense fear and denial is costing us something incredibly precious. The real tragedy here is that by constantly running from death, we're actually losing our lives. Because we walk around assuming we have infinite time, we live completely without urgency. It's exactly like John Lennon famously said, life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans. We plan, we chase, we endlessly push our happiness to some imaginary Tuesday in the future when we'll finally have enough time. And then, well, death shows up and shatters all those carefully laid plans. Assuming we have forever strips away our urgency and leaves us with nothing but shattered plans. Plus, this stubborn refusal to accept the inevitable creates a ton of unnecessary suffering. Think about when our loved ones reach the end. Our desperate need to keep them here can sometimes become, well, cruel. We strip away their dignity long after their minds have faded, essentially prolonging life rather than actually saving it, all because we can't face the fact that death is always waiting in the wings. I want to throw a question your way, and I really want you to pause and think about it. What would your life actually look like if you were immortal? I mean, if you had a literal eternity to do everything, why on earth would you do absolutely anything today? Take death out of the equation, and you completely destroy urgency. You destroy meaning. If there's no finish line, what's the rush? Let's look at part 3, rebranding death as change. So the solution here isn't to just walk around terrified all the time. We need to borrow a page from the ancient Stoics and completely rebrand how we look at mortality. See, they didn't view death as some horrible tragedy. They saw it as the ultimate test of how well you lived. Actually, the philosopher Michel de Montaigne even wrote an essay called To Philosophize is to Learn How to Die. We've completely lost touch with what death actually is. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that death is just a natural change. It's a simple rearrangement of atoms. It's honestly no different from the everyday changes we see out in nature, except this one just happens to be final. If the universe is just atoms rearranging and it's all guided by nature, then there is absolutely nothing to panic about. Think about it like this. Every single moment that passes is a mini-death we have to face. We are literally practicing for it all the time. The person you were 10 years ago, completely gone. That was a mini-death. Without life, death simply wouldn't exist. The two are entirely natural and completely codependent. Moving on to part 4, diagnosing tomorrow as the end. Because death almost always crashes the party at the absolute worst moment, especially for people who never see it coming, the Stoics came up with a super practical daily routine to cure this anxiety of the unknown. Here's the framework. Step 1, visualize your mortality right before you go to sleep. Step 2, imagine today is your very last day on Earth. And step 3, focus entirely on this exact moment right now. When you stamp a hypothetical expiration date on your life, you force yourself to focus on the only thing you actually possess for sure, today. Whether tomorrow happens is totally out of your hands, but knowing you are breathing, alive, right here, right now, that should fill you with immense gratitude. It instantly flips your perspective and makes life a much more vibrant experience. Which brings us to part 5, accepting relational death. Now, if we're going to embrace our own end, we have to confront a really uncomfortable truth about the people we hold closest to us. It's a brutal, undeniable fact. When you think about every single person you love right now, there are only 3 possible outcomes. Ready? You die first, they die first, or you die at the exact same time. That's it. Those are the only options. We absolutely hate thinking about this, I know. But accepting this stark reality is the only way to truly, deeply appreciate the people you love while they are actually sitting right there next to you. Because to master death, you also have to master the art of letting go in life. Let's compare physical death to the end of a relationship. Friendships end, right? People we thought would be by our side forever just drift away because they change or, hey, we change. The end of a romantic relationship is essentially a kind of death too. The feelings linger, the person is still out there walking around, and our desperate hope just keeps the pain alive. But just like physical death, the absolute only cure for this suffering is total acceptance. You just have to let go of the craving for things to be different than they actually are. Finally, part 6, fuel your life with virtue. Ultimately, all of this philosophy points us to one massive question. What does it mean to be truly alive? For the Stoics, a good life is built on following nature, knowing who you are, and living well. Marcus Aurelius put it perfectly. He said, "Just that you do the right thing, the rest doesn't matter, because dying too is one of our assignments in life. There as well, to do what needs doing." It's so true. A good life is infinitely easier to leave behind when you fueled it with virtue. If you practice doing the right thing day in and day out, then when your time finally comes, you can face it with profound peace, even joy, because you know you did your job, you met your obligations. So what's the game plan here? Stop hiding from your fears. Speak up about them. Remember that death is not the enemy, it's the reminder. We need to officially rebrand death and let it teach us how to actually live. Use it. Use it to force yourself to be incredibly grateful for the people around you. Make sure you never ever take this crazy existence for granted, and focus entirely on what actually matters, being the absolute best version of yourself for the sake of the world around you. And that brings us to this final, incredibly empowering thought. Death, thank you for making my life beautiful. If you live a life fueled by virtue, by gratitude, and by a real sense of urgency, when death finally does meet you, you'll be able to look it right in the eye and honestly say, I've lived a wonderful life, and I'm ready for this change. So I'm going to leave you with one last question as we wrap up this explainer. Knowing that your clock is ticking right this very second, what is the one meaningful thing you are going to stop putting off and finally do today?